Welcome everybody to this lunch event session which has the title What's New in Permissions and User Management. My name is Jesper Schultz-Wedde and I'm the engineering manager on the Business Central Application Foundation team. We're a team working on providing you with the horizontal building blocks that you need to build world-class business applications upon. And one of these building blocks is indeed permissions and user management, which is what we're going to talk about today. And with me I have Ihor.
Yes, and my name is Ihor Handziuk. I'm an engineer on the Application Foundation team, and I'll help you today with presenting all these amazing new features.
Alrighty. Little word of advice here, or word of caution. You should fasten your seatbelts. This presentation is going to be very heavy on demos. We have lined up a whole bunch of demos for you, which is, we think, is the best way to showcase, these amazing new capabilities in Business Central. So let's jump right into it. Quick look at the agenda. Now, these headlines might not mean much to you quite yet, but we're going to touch upon each of these obviously later in this presentation. We're going to start by introducing the concept of excluding from wildcard permissions. More on that in a minute. Then we're going to show you how we actually put inherent permissions to use. Inherent permissions were introduced in the previous release. Now we actually put them to use. Then we're going to show you what we did to UserSync. We actually improved the performance of that functionality quite a bit, so more on that later. We also made some improvements in the UserSync when it comes to security groups on Business Central environments. And even more on security groups, Ihor is also going to show you how you now can nest security groups for more structure in your security groups. And then comes probably the star of this presentation, which is security groups in Business Central. You can now use security groups in Business Central, which is really a great new capability for administrators. And then we're going to show you how we deprecated user groups, because these user groups now won't be needed anymore after we have security groups and composable permissions. And then very briefly, we're going to touch upon the capability of sending job queues for approval as delegated admins. So there's a lot of content to cover. Let's get started.
Sounds like an action-packed agenda.
It is. No time to waste. Exclude from wildcard permissions. Now, exclude from wildcard permissions is actually an improvement of the composable permission set functionality, which we introduced in the last release, 2022 Wave 2. So what we've done is that we now allow you to exclude objects, such as pages or reports, and the likes of it, from permission sets which include wildcard permissions for these object types. So basically, all the objects except for tables, which is the only one that we control permissions on if you are using permission sets out of the box from Business Central. And why did we do that? Well, we want to give you more control over which objects you would like to give users access to. So let's see this in action. Now we find ourselves in Business Central. And let me just quickly first go to the users page to show you the users that we have. We've got a full user admin who is a super user, and then we've got an essentials user here. And the essentials user has the D365 business full access. All right, let's take a look at the permissions. So D365 business full access has included the D365 basic permission set. And this basic permission set, again, includes base app objects exec. Now, this is the important one, because this one actually includes all these wildcard permissions that we're talking about. And here, for instance, you see that page 0 is included, meaning all pages you will have execute permissions for. And that means if you're using this permission set, any user will be able to use any page. So let's just see, now we're in the essentials user, let's just see that that actually indeed works. I'm opening the chart of accounts and you can see everything works just fine. So what if we were to change this? This is now possible. Actually, we released this already in a minor update because some of you couldn't wait to receive this. So you can actually already do that today. So if you go to permission sets, let's create a new one. And that is because you cannot exclude wildcard permissions on existing sets. You will have to create your own set, a user-defined set. So let's create a my D365 full set. I forgot the D, doesn't matter. My 365 full. All right, let's do permissions. And now we include our full permission set here. So then the permission set is exactly the same as it was before. There we go. Full access is included. And just for the sake of completeness, let me just quickly show you again that we still have the basic in here and we still have the exec base objects. But now let's go to the kicker. We can now actually go in and we can exclude a page. Let's say we want to exclude the chart of accounts that we just showed. Page 16. That should do. Now if we switch over, that you're going to go to the user, of course, and we need to now remove the original permission set and we need to include the My D365 full permission set because we will obviously want to give this user the new set. There we go. Now this user has the new permission set. And now we can actually go back to our Essentials user. And if we click Chart of Accounts, well, you get the permission error. Yes, so that is very powerful. You now have control over other object types than tables. All right, that was the first demo. Let's keep it up. Next topic is inherent permissions in action. Again, inherent permissions is not new. It is something that we again shipped in 2022 Wave 2, half a year ago. But when we shipped the platform functionality, we didn't really have any uptake. Now, this is what we've changed this time around. And why would you use inherent permissions? Well, we want to reduce the number of permissions that the system administrator must relate to. You know, some objects are simply not worth considering or controlling for a system admin. They might be very technical concepts or simply something that every user needs to have access to. So why bother the system administrator with the ability to control these specific permissions? Now, we started out slowly, so we took the also newly introduced login permission set, which has been in the product now, I think, also for half a year. And in this login permission set, we tried to take some of the permissions out and transform them into inherent permissions, meaning that those permissions now no longer are configurable. Again, I think this is, better demoed than shown on slides. So let's jump right into this. Again, we find ourselves in the role center. Let's go back to our permission sets. And as we said, it's the login permission set that we're interested in here. So let's go to login. There we are. Now we need to drill down a bit. So first we look at the system application set, and the system application set has an edit, and the edit has a view, and the view has a read. Really put nested permissions to use here. And then here we will also find a object. There we are. Now, let's take just the first one, and anyone will actually do because we changed most of these. So let's take a look at the AAD user management module. We will find that there are actually only two permissions left in this one. One of them is the facade code unit, which provides you access to the API for Azure AD user management, which is rather important code unit. So here we want to maybe control permissions, so that's why it's still in the set. And the other one is the page, where you can actually update users. And on pages, again, we maybe want to control permissions, so here it also makes sense to have it in the permission set. So how has that changed? Well, let's take a look if we open a recent version of Business Central. So I just took the 21.4 release here, and let's see what it actually looks here. So I've already drilled down to save some time. Again, let's take a look at the AD user management. And if we now click on View Permissions, you'll see there are many more in here in the old version. So for instance, you'll find stuff like tenant information. But why would you want to control tenant information? Everyone should have access to the API to look at tenant information, or implementation code units, which you cannot even access through code. So there's absolutely no point in controlling permissions for these object types, and so on and so forth. So essentially, only the two that were left are worth controlling permissions for. The rest of this list, you don't really need to control. So that's why we have removed these, and the result is obviously, a much simpler, much more comprehensible, easily comprehensible permission set.
So basically, we removed clutter and focused on what's important. Love to see it.
Exactly. And we're going to continue on this. Of course, this is not done overnight. We have tons of permissions. But, given time, hopefully, you'll have a much smaller set of permissions that you need to relate to. So that was demo 2. I hope you're still with me. Next up, we're going to take a quick peek at what did we do to fast user sync. how did we improve user sync? Again, this is something that we actually already released in a minor because you just couldn't wait to receive this, but nonetheless it is a new feature, so let's cover it here. We made some invisible improvements to the update users from Microsoft 365 Action on the users page. And specifically, we improved the performance of this user synchronization action, and specifically for AAD environments, or for environments with many AAD users. Not necessarily all AAD users have Business Central licenses, but previously we would still iterate through all of these users and try to sync them to Business Central, and that would result in rather slow performance. Now, what we've changed is that we now only iterate over the users which actually have a license, resulting in a much improved performance. Again, we can do a demo. In this case, I will also quickly touch upon license configuration. This is nothing new. It's like, I think it was implemented, if not half a year, then a year ago. But it's just nice to also see this one while we're demoing everything anyway. So let's start with the license configuration. Now, the license configuration, as you may know, is the place where we can configure which permissions you get when you log in for the first time or when you sync a user with a given license. Now, we highly recommend that you do not use the default permissions, so we will customize them. And in this case, let's just delete all of these and let's use the newly created permission set, the My, where we have now decided that you are not allowed to access the chart of accounts. So now everyone with an essential license is going to get this permission set instead. All right. So here we have here we're back in Microsoft 365, and as we see, we have a lot of users, right? So sync would actually take quite a while here. So let's try to give one of these users a Business Central license. And we do that over here. We've got one left. There we go. Now that takes just a second to save. All right, and now that we've given this user a license, let's try to go to users and invoke this action, which now usually, as we have so many users, would take quite a while. But in this case, we click next and we wait. Still takes a couple of seconds, but there you go. So actually this was rather quick, right? And as you can see, we have the external accountant that has a license, the team member, and our new user 000, who now also got a plan. So that was rather quick, and by doing that, we now have synced our users with Microsoft 365.
And it only took a couple of seconds, even when there were hundreds of users on the tenant.
Yeah, and that usually, I think, we had examples where it took several hours. So this is really a great improvement, and it's already well received out there. But this is not the only thing that we did for the syncing of users functionality. We actually also improved when you have security groups on Business Central environments. Security groups on Business Central environments is, again, nothing new. But previously, you would not be able to update users from Microsoft 365, invoke this action when using this capability. But now, we actually respect the security group that is set on the Business Central environment. And why do we do that? Well, it's because now, we allow users to be assigned to specific environments only, and then only these are synced before they log in. Previously, you had to log in. When you sync, you wouldn't see these users, but now you can, and you can pre-configure the tenant, which is great. And we do that by now only iterating over the users which actually belong to the security group defined on the Business Central environment. I think previously, correct me if I'm wrong, previously we would just pull in all the users, even the ones that we're not able to access. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so let's see actually how that works. I promised you a lot of demos, and I think I'm owning up to that. So we're back here in Business Central, and we again have our list of users here. We clicked update last so that we get all the users in. Now let's try to set a security group. As you may know, you go into the environment in your admin center, and this is where you can set the security group. But we don't have one yet. So let's go back to the admin center here and create one real quick. So we're going to create a security group which is specific, which you will need to be a member of if you want to access the environment. So let's just call this, BC Access, And I'm going to skip over the description for the sake of this demo. That's really all it takes. Now we have a security group. Of course, the security group also needs to have a few members. Let's keep it simple. Let's say that only our admin gets to access this environment for now. So out of the 5 users, only a single one should be left that gets access to the environment. So let's add some members. This takes just a second. It's almost like Business Central is faster in syncing users now than the admin center is. That's how good of a job we did. All right, here we have the list of users. Let's pick the full user admin here and add that user to our group. Again, takes a second here to load. And now we have our full user admin as part of the environment, of the security group, sorry. And now we can set it on the environment. We just quickly refresh here, F5. And I can now go in again in my environment, and I can now set the security group to the security group we just created. I'm going to say yes. All right, we have it set. And now, if I now go in and sync, it will actually not go through all the users, but it will actually now remove all of the plans for the 4 users that were not part of the security group. So those will now no longer be allowed to log in. All right, that's it.
Amazing feature.
Yeah, no, this is really, really cool. And generally, like using security groups just makes a lot of things much more comprehensible and easy for the administrator, I guess, in the end, right?
But did you know that actually you can take it a step further and not only define the group with a top level and only have members who are users, you can actually nest security groups.
Wow. Well, nested security groups happen to be the next topic on our list. So why don't you tell us more about that, Ihor?
Yes, let's jump straight into it. So what we have done now is that when you define a security group on your Business Central environment, we will actually respect both direct and indirect members, which means that you have nested security groups. Why we have done it? Well, it actually simplifies the setup and maintenance of your security groups for the administrator of the tenant. Now, you don't have to have this master group where you add all of your users. You can actually have a hierarchy of groups where you define some granularity as to how you set them up. And how we did it? Now we just changed the calls and the APIs that we call, so we always consider both direct and indirect members of the group. And we know that it will apply to the environment security group, but just a small hint as to what's to come, it will also apply to our next demos when we will show how we use security groups within Business Central. So let's jump straight into the demo. I will start here in Business Central, but navigate to the Admin Center, where, as you see, I have created another security group called Purchasing, and I just want to have some granularity, so I'll create another one, a new security group, and for the sake of completeness, I want to have it as a sales group, so I'll have groups for both sales and purchasing in my tenant. Nice, the group is created. So as before, let's just go and add some members to this group. And yeah, I'll just navigate here to the members section, add some members. Again, waiting for the load. Yes, and let's pick the external accountant and Teams. Oops. Teams user and external accountant. Let's say that's my sales team. So these are the 2 users I want to add. Let's give it a couple seconds to save. Yes, now it is saved. Now we can go to the BC Access group, the one that is actually defined on the Business Central environment. And let's go ahead and add members. But this time we will not add members that are users, we will actually add the groups that we have created before. So first I'll just search for the group I created, sales, and market. And now I'll look for the other group, purchasing, so that my top level group has all the other groups involved with Business Central included in it. Let's give it a couple seconds to save again. Yes, now we have it fully set up. Now we can go back to Business Central and click this action again, update users from Microsoft 365. Let's click next and see what happens. And we actually have quite a few updates, and as you can see, they are about users that we just added, so the external accountant and the team member. And you can actually see that we also have the change of plan for the essentials user. That's because we configured license configuration before. Let's just keep the append action to keep it simple. And click next. And we can just verify that these are just all changes in plan. And we can finish the wizard now. Great, all 3 of the changes have been successfully applied. That was it. It just works out of the box.
It's very cool. Gives you much more control over the groups and the users, and then it's like really good.
So now let's move on to the star of the show, how you actually now match security groups in Business Central to AD security groups, and how you can manage permissions through that. So what we have done is added new functionality, which allows you to control Business Central permissions using security groups. Why we have done it? Well, it's quite easy. Administrators want to control permissions of different products, including Business Central, through the M365 Admin Center. This is a central point where you would want to control the permissions. Or you could also do it from the Azure portal. And how we did it? Well, we added a new module, and we added this new functionality that allows you to match AD security groups and the Business Central permissions. So without further delay, let's just jump right straight into the demo. We are back here in Business Central, just as we left it, and we want to navigate to the new page called Security Groups. I will now want to create a new group, and as you can see, I get this dialog that instructs me that I can create a new security group in Business Central by matching it to an AD security group. And I can invoke this lookup, which will allow me to select from the available groups. And here in the list, you can see all the 3 groups that we have defined earlier in our demos. So first, I'll select the sales group and just create it. Let's give it a couple of seconds to validate. Yes. Now let's do the exact same thing for the purchasing group, because I do want this granularity. Like, it's not enough for me in this tenant to only have permissions defined by the license configuration, because I have essentials users both in the sales team and in the purchasing team. So let me just create the purchasing team so that later on we can define granular permissions associated with these groups. And as you can see on the right, in the fact boxes area, I already can see members that BC Essential is a member of the purchasing group that we have added before. Now let's go to permissions. So let's actually now make use of these groups by associating them with Business Central permissions. I will open the lookup and add some groups related to purchasing. So here I have created my D365 Purge permission set, which was defined the same way as in an earlier demo, just getting D365 fin and purchasing permission set and excluding, let's say, a page chart of accounts. And let's do the same for sales. So let's navigate to the lookup, and I will search for my and select the sales permission set. Nice. So now for both groups, I have associated the permission sets with an AD group, and I can see which members of the group this permission set will apply to. Now, obviously, if you have more members in the future, it will be reflected here, and you don't need to run additional thinking action. So it all happens on the fly, and the permissions are refreshed on every signing. So let's go ahead and verify it. We can now go to license configuration. And as I've said before, we don't want to have this big permission set as we had before the D365 full, or in this case, my D365 full. We want to have it even more granular. So let's edit the page, delete this permission set. Yes, and yeah, that's what we want. We want to have the license configuration completely empty.
So now, unless you're part of one of these security groups, you will not be able to log into the system anymore?
Exactly.
Makes sense.
So let's actually go ahead and go to the list of users to assign a new license to a user to showcase that you can actually get these permissions propagated even on the first signing. So I'll navigate to user 001 here, navigate to licenses and apps, and assign a Business Central Essentials license, exactly the one that we customized earlier within the license configuration. So normally this user would get 0 permissions within Business Central and not be able to sign in at all. But what I will now do is to open the groups and add this member to the sales group. I will just click Add Member and yes, and search for user 001. Yeah, that's the one that we have just assigned the Business Central license to. Let's give it a couple of seconds to save. Great. Okay, now we are all set up. So we can go back to Business Central. Here I'll navigate to the users page and run the update users from Microsoft 365 action yet again, because now I have a new licensed user. Let's bring it in. Let's click Next to fetch the list of updates. And we can see that, yes, indeed, this is user 001, and we have all these new entities that signify that this is a new user. So let's finish the wizard. Yes, the new user has been created. Now the interesting part comes here. As you can see on the right in the permission set fact box, there is nothing actually, but you also see a new fact box called permission sets from security groups. And there you see the propagated or inherited permission sets that the user gets because this user is a member of the security group. And let's just scroll down. Yeah, let's see that we also see in the fact box which groups this user is a member of. In this case, it's only one group, sales, but it's perfectly possible to be a member of multiple groups and get a union of all the permissions from all your security groups. Yes, and we can see that there are no permissions. Now let's in the new browser window actually navigate and sign in as user 001 to show that even though no permissions are assigned to this user directly, just because of having these inherited permissions, this user will get access to Business Central and will get exactly the permission set that we have defined earlier. So here I signed in, and I'll go to the vendors list because, as you remember, I have assigned the sales permission set. So let's see if I have some permissions problems. And indeed, as you can see here in the notification, I don't have permissions to vendor ledger entries, which makes perfect sense because I'm a part of a sales team. I don't need access to this functionality. So this was the end. You can just match Business Central permissions to security groups and control them while never even entering BC. You can do it straight from M365 Admin Center.
It's really great new functionality. So what about our on-prem customers? Would they also benefit from this?
Great question. Actually, we have implemented full feature parity for SaaS and on-prem. So on-prem, you'll be able to use Windows groups from Active Directory and use the functionality in just the same way.
Perfect. Well, have you got even more for us?
Yes, there is one last thing from me here. And this is about deprecation of user groups. Now, usually people are cautious about when we deprecate things because people get used to functionality and to the way things were before. But in this case, we have a very good reason to remove user groups as they have been fully replaced by other concepts. So now we have security groups and we have composable permission sets, which makes user groups completely redundant. Now, why we've done it? We could have kept it, but it's just yet another concept that admins would have to keep in mind, and it wouldn't add anything new to the system when you can control permissions through security groups and directly through permission sets. So we've done it to streamline and simplify the permission management for administrators. And how we've done it? We marked all the application objects related to user groups as obsoleted, and we provided some migration capability so that it's as easy as possible for you to migrate your existing user groups into permission sets and to start using security groups. Let's move on to the demo then. So we are back in the Business Central environment, and this is actually a different tenant, not the one we have been using up until now. And here I actually have user groups defined. So I'll go to the users list and see that I have a lot of permission sets, but also the important one is the fact box with user group memberships. So here you can see that I'm a member of my full access user group. Yes, let's navigate to user groups and see what does this group do, what permissions does it have. So this is the group, and it has a bunch of permissions, some sales permissions, perch doc post, a bunch of different things. But also I noticed that there is a notification on top of the page that says that this functionality will be removed in a future release, and that I can somehow convert user groups, and there is an action to help me navigate to the place where I can do it. So let's see what happens when I click this action. It opens a feature management page, and I can just enable this feature of converting the user groups because, yes, I just want to move forward with using the new functionality because user groups will be removed. There is a small prompt. If I really want to move forward with the guide, let's click yes. Now here we know that permission management is a very important and sensitive topic for the admins. So we describe in a lot of detail exactly what will happen after you complete the guide. And there is supplementary information here. For now, let's just click next. And on the next page, we see that there is a list of our user groups. Let's maximize it. And there are some actions we can do with them. So for every user group in your environment, we would offer you a choice of two actions. You would either be able to assign permissions to members, and this option is the one where you wouldn't even remove or add any permissions to users whatsoever. The only thing this action does is that it breaks the link between permission sets and user groups. So all the users currently having permission sets will keep the same permission sets that you see on the user card. And only the user groups will be removed. So the list of user groups in each case will be empty after we run this wizard. And the second option we offer is convert to a permission set. What this means is that we will get the list of permission sets assigned to a user group and then add them to a new automatically created tenant permission set as included permission sets. So in this way, we preserve the hierarchy and still offer you to manage groups of permission sets that you had assigned to your user group. So as you remember, in my group, I actually had quite a few of permission sets, and I want to keep them like that because they represent some entity to me. So to make it easier for me to manage this set of permission sets, I'll go ahead and select the second option, convert to a permission set. And let's click next. All done. So this has supposedly been converted. Let's navigate to the users list and verify what has actually happened. Here on the right, I can already see that we had a my full access permission set, but also the important part is that we have no user group. So here you can see the permission set, my full access, and that's the one that we have just created. That was the name of the user group. Now we can navigate to the permission sets list and look for it. Let's say my full access. So this is the permission set that has been automatically created. It's a bit small. Let's maybe maximize the page. And we can see here on the right a list of all included permission sets. And this is exactly the list of permission sets associated with the user groups. So no information has been lost. We have done a clean conversion. And let's just, for the sake of completeness, check the user groups page to make sure that there are no entries here. And indeed, as you can see, the list is empty. And we get a different notification that in case you want to install an extension that depends on user group functionality, or for some other reason you want to re-enable it again, we offer you to navigate to the feature management page yet again. And then once you disable the feature, you'll be able to use the user groups once again.
I don't really see any reason to miss user groups. I think they are perfectly replaced by something much more capable.
I agree. All right. So I think we have one last section left. Would you know anything about it?
Absolutely. So one final little demo. Actually, it's not going to be a demo this time around. I'm just going to show a quick screenshot. But yeah, let's take a look what we have here. So the last topic is sending job queues for approval as delegated admin. Now, what does that mean? Now we have added a new action on the job queue entry card, where a delegated admin can ask for approval to run the job queue entry in the context of the approving user. All right? So this will actually allow delegated admins to start job queue entries, which they weren't capable of doing before, even though it will not be in their own user context. That still isn't possible, but at least they'll have the means to create job queue entries and then ask another user to run these job queue entries in their context, which is a big step forward, I think. And we actually just did that by stitching together bits and pieces in the application that we already had. So we took the approval system and the job queue entries, and together we stitched these together to provide these capabilities to delegated admins. Now, this is more or less what it looks like. On the job queue entry card, you will now see a little action, approvals, and then send approval request. And this is simply the only thing that the delegated admin needs to invoke. And then an approval request will be sent to a user who will then, when that user approves, will then allow the job queue entries to get started in the context of that user. So this should unblock a lot of delegated admins out there who previously were not able to queue up these job queue entries.
Sounds like a great step forward. So you don't need to call another user to start your job queue anymore?
Nope, it's all like the processes that were already in the product that they should be familiar with, and that should be a good improvement as well.
Great.
So, but that really sums up the session. We raced through 8 great topics. First, we showed how to exclude from wildcard permissions. Then we showed how we started using inherent permissions in the system application. We then quickly touched upon how user sync now is much faster than it used to be. We also showed how this user sync works now with security groups on Business Central environments. And then Ihor showed us how you can nest security groups to have a more structured security group hierarchy. And then we showed how actually security groups now can be used for permission control in Business Central. And we showed how this actually all replaces user groups, and how you can deprecate and easily move from user groups to the new concepts. And then finally, we told you how you can now send job queue entries for approval as delegated admins. That was quite a bit. I hope you stayed with us and that you got inspired by this.
That's a crazy number of new features.
It is, but I think they will be very, very handy and very well received out there. At least we hope. Of course, if you are, have questions after all of these demos, and I would not wonder if that's the case, you can reach us on Yammer. You can, of course, join the conversation on Twitter. We're always happy to join in conversations there with you. You will, of course, also have more resources on the BC All. And maybe there are even things that you think, well, this is a fantastic start, but I'm missing this and that functionality in these features. Well, you can submit your ideas on BC Ideas. And also remember, it's not just you can submit BC Ideas, you can also submit open source suggestions on BC Ideas now, so that you can implement the improvements yourself. I'm very happy to engage on this mission with you. And maybe, if we get enough questions, we will host a BC Office Hour where we will maybe do some deep dives into this if there's a necessity for that.
Great.
Yeah, but other than that, that was pretty much it, right, Ihor?
Yeah, that was a lot, actually.
Yeah, so thank you for staying with us, and we hope you enjoyed all these new features and that you put them to use. And we'll look forward to hear from you, what you think about them. Do give us feedback. Thank you very much.